Hello everyone, what is up? It is me, Ewan from What Culture, today joined by Simon Gallagher.
Hello.
And Zoe Miss Kelly.
Hey.
Because if you weren't paying attention over the weekend, you won't know that the MCU had a big shindig at Hall H at San Diego Comic-Con 2019. There were a whole host of other things that happened that day, and we all woke up on Sunday morning basically in a collective state of blah, because there were a lot of announcements. Basically, the entire Phase 4 slate of the MCU was revealed, and there were some really cool surprises, some really nice, interesting details that were revealed. So we're basically here to unpack all of them and go into the nitty-gritty details of each film and TV show that was revealed for Disney+. So we'll be doing it by release date, and the first thing that comes out is Black Widow. And there was actually trailer footage that they showed off at the event, kind of that was rumored beforehand, and basically revealing that the film is set after the events of Captain America Civil War. We'll probably see flashbacks to before then as well, I think is fairly certain. And basically kind of went into detail with Florence Pugh's character. She's playing Yelena Belova. Yelena Belova.
It's easy for you to say.
Yes, Yelena Belova, and kind of implying the shared history there with the Red Room and stuff, and also you get a look at David Harbour's Red Guardian. It's been a very long weekend, and Taskmaster as well. We got some concept art that came out after that, so yeah, some really interesting stuff there. What is the most exciting thing to you about Black Widow currently?
It seems a little bit unfair to say it, but it's Red Guardian, to be honest. I really, really like David Harbour, and I think what happened to him with Hellboy was an absolute travesty.
R.I.P.
So the idea of him playing a sort of Russian Captain America, who is one of the super soldiers, who must be linked to the whole Zemo plot in Civil War, because they can't just pull another one out of nowhere. I just think that's great. Obviously, the idea of having a Black Widow film in the first place is great, but to have such an interesting supporting cast and to have a character like that coming in is amazing.
Yeah, I'm really excited about Taskmaster, and there have been some theories floating around because Rachel Weisz is actually in this film as well, which I'm really happy for. And people thought that she was going to be playing I forget the name of the character, but she's in Mark Waid and Chris Samnee's Black Widow comic, where she's the headmistress. I think it might literally be the headmistress of the Red Room.
Yeah.
But some theories now are pointing that she could be Taskmaster, because we've only seen Taskmaster, you know, in the hood, and the actual concept art is really, really cool. They kind of have Captain America's shield on the side there, which implies that they've already been watching the Avengers and studying them. What are your thoughts on this being set after, because this is the first time, really, that an MCU film has gone back to set itself in between other MCU films. With Captain America and the First Avenger and Captain Marvel, they were all kind of separate enough than when they were set beforehand, whereas this is very much occupying a unique space in time, almost like it's the Rogue One of Marvel films. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think we really would have missed out on all the Red Room stuff if we hadn't sort of shenaniganed the timeline. So I'm really pleased with it, because I do think like the strongest Black Widow comics to convert are always the stuff about the Red Room. Like, I live for that weird assassin time.
Yeah, because they go into some detail about Budapest as well, which, you know, it's kind of been a question that if you were very into your early MCU fandom in Phase 1 after the Avengers came out, everyone was like, what happened in Budapest? And like back in the plain simple days of everyone shipping Clint Barton and Natasha Romanoff together. And we've never really known what happened in Budapest. We've had a few little tie-in comics reveal some little bits and bobs now and then, but we've never gone full into that. And we see Black Widow at this point in time in Eastern Europe kind of exploring her past, which we think probably has been like set off by what Cap's told her from Civil War and her interaction with the Winter Soldier as well, who we know is going to be in this film. So yeah, do you think there's potential for Hawkeye to appear there as well? Because they didn't have Renner actually walk out on stage that bit.
If he is in, the reason why he didn't appear on stage is because it takes away too much thunder from Scarlett Johansson, and it sort of makes it a Black Widow and Hawkeye film, and you don't want to market it like that.
No.
Ant-Man and the Wasp got a lot of heat because it was a shared, like a sort of hand wave to a female character. It also would distract from the Hawkeye TV show. They wanted him to be out on stage first for Hawkeye. Like, there was, marketing wise, it would be stupid to bring him out before that. But to be honest, I always thought the Budapest thing worked better as a gag than it did a story. Like, I wanted to know, I don't want to know that. It was like the Kessel Run. I didn't want to know about that. I didn't want to know whether Solo was lying about it or not. And when the film came out, demystified it, and there's a reason why Solo was not very well received. And I think if they go too far into explaining what happened in Budapest, it might be a bit of a mistake. So hopefully they'll continue it as a joke, which unfortunately means no Hawkeye. But he'll be fine because he's got his TV show.
Exactly, and we'll get to that later on. We're going to move on to the next thing to release in chronological order, and that is the Falcon and Winter Soldier TV show that comes in fall 2020. Sprufall.
Make a new series.
Like Smarch, except less lousy. And I'm really excited for this one because then they got Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan on stage. They brought out Captain America's shield with them, and they kind of had a bit of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge, where they're kind of, both sharing the shield, which, anyone familiar with Captain America over the past decade will know that both those characters have wielded the shield at different points in time. Bucky first after his death in Civil War, and then Sam Wilson, I think it was after Steve Rogers was aged by his super soldier serum, which was very weird and a very confusing time for us all here at What Culture. I'm very excited about this show. I'm not familiar with too much about what they're going to do with it. I'm more, it's not necessarily the intricate plot details that I'm excited about. It's more the thematic stuff that they can broach here, and the idea of Captain America's legacy coming full circle in here. I don't know.
They've been very clever in that they haven't actually released that much plot about it. They're selling it on the idea of Captain America's legacy, which makes it ridiculous that they haven't called it Captain America and the White Wolf. These two characters are not called Falcon and
anymore.
The
no.
Winter Soldier in particular is confusing. But I suppose they're the most established brands for those two characters. The best thing about it, and most of the plot, is that Zemo is back. Daniel Bruhl's excellent villain, which is a strange one because his arc sort of ended with the fact that he got revenge on the Avengers, but then the Avengers aren't as broken as he wanted them to be. So perhaps there's an opportunity for him to still be pretty pissed off at the whole idea of superheroes. But who knows? And he's also going to be comics accurate. According to the footage that was shown anyway, he had his purple hood.
I'm game for purple hooded Zemo. I'm really happy about that. I don't know. I could see his plot maybe, because I know obviously about Civil War is about him destroying the Avengers from the inside out, and there was a whole aspect of Tony Stark's legacy in Age of Ultron where we saw him responsible for the Sokovia thing. I would be interested to see if maybe this is Marvel's way of making a commentary on how Captain America can be misappropriated and how that legacy can be tarnished easily, and it's both of them fighting for it. I don't know. Do you think? I think we're fairly certain that Sam Wilson will end the series as Captain America.
I would think so.
Yeah, after the way it was set up in Endgame. But where do you think Bucky could be going with all this? It's one of those things where he was kind of left to the wayside in both Infinity War and Endgame. After Civil War, he got shipped off to Wakanda to have his mind fixed, and then he shot a lot of people in Infinity War and then shot some more people in Endgame. We've not really dwelled too much on the consequences for him specifically. I know a lot of people felt they were, he kind of, his moment with Steve was robbed from him in Endgame. Do you think they have a chance to make up for that here? Or
I think it's going to go full buddy cop. We're going to see because obviously as good a character as well as a good a relationship as Captain America and Bucky have, it always becomes the one, whereas I think it'd be interesting to sort of be he's allowed other friends now. He can go outside.
And of course, they were the best part, well, not the best part, but they were definitely one of the best parts about Civil War. Their chemistry together was fantastic, and I'm definitely down.
It is quite fitting that Zemo would go after the Winter Soldier, and that may be why it's called that, because as far as everybody's concerned, Bucky is now going to be a hero, and Zemo should be didn't this guy kill JFK and all these other people?
I forgot about the JFK thing.
It's him now. He's got nice hair. So he's a good guy.
He'll be doing commercials for Head and Shoulders, and everyone will forget about it eventually with his soft, flaky, free hair. But anyway, moving on to the next thing to release that year, and that is Chloe Zhao's The Eternals, slated to release November 5th, 2020. It's written by Matthew and Brian Firpo. And they basically pulled the lid back on all the casting announcements. We have Angelina Jolie as Athena, Salma Hayek as Ajax, Kamal Nanjiani as King Osunan, and one that I'm personally excited for is Brian Tyree Henry as Phaistos, because he is great. I love Brian Tyree. And then we've got Leah McHugh as Sprite, Don Lee as Gilgamesh, and Lauren Ridloff as Makari, which is a gender-swapped role for this film. I'm really excited for the Eternals, and I still feel as though this is the MCU film everyone's sleeping on right now, despite the fact that Marvel are making a big song and dance about it.
And Richard Madden.
And Richard Madden as well. Big one there. But yeah, I don't know. I feel as though this is the MCU film that everyone is kind of being, oh yeah, the Eternals. But I feel as though this has the potential very much to be the next Guardians, in the sense that you look at the scope and scale of Jack Kirby's vision and having that applied to the big screen. I don't think anyone is ready for this film. Like I'm fully on the Eternals hype machine, even though I think the new Guardians are slightly better. But Marvel beating them to the punch again. So there we go.
The difficulty with it is that a lot of people will see the Eternals and an alien race and think it's just I've forgotten the name of it. Exactly that. This is the problem.
Yeah.
The Inhumans.
The Inhumans.
So that was presented in a similar sort of way where it was off to the side of the MCU, and it will not be like that.
No.
And it won't be as bad. But they face a marketing issue slightly with this, which is why, I mean, they've got a completely phenomenal cast, and it's great, and they're going to have to lean on that a lot and try and get some Guardians marketing in there, because people will immediately think this is another Inhumans.
Yeah, I think the Celestial thing, because if anyone who doesn't know who the Eternals are, basically descendant, when the Celestials basically came down in the Marvel Universe, they created 3 different species. There was the Eternals, the Deviants, and the Humans. And the Deviants we've already seen through the Skrulls and Thanos. Yeah, we're the Deviants as well. And then the Humans are, the imperfect mesh between the two, whereas the Eternals are meant to be all that's good and holy in the world. So we've got some interesting questions that they can kind of divulge there. But on the whole, we still don't know that much. We still don't know who's going to be playing Cersei. Everyone thought that Angelina Jolie would be playing that character, but she's not. Interested. I'm very excited. There's not much we can really say about the film other than still waiting on that casting, and people should really wake up and start paying attention to it, because it seems very, very exciting. So the next thing up is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, which is, the first MCU origin film that gets subtitles since Captain America, the First Avenger.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yes, it is. And again, we kind of called it beforehand that we thought it would deal with the Mandarin because
it needed to.
His comics dad is Fu Manchu, and we won't really go there, even though the Mandarin is pretty equivalent in terms of that, insensitive role from the years gone by.
I know it's bad when it literally the creator of Fu Manchu was like, please don't use it.
Yeah. But Simu Liu is playing Shang-Chi. He literally got the part last Tuesday. He screen tested on the weekend before. He'd been doing like public campaigning for the role for a little bit, and he literally got cast on the Tuesday. And if that isn't doing your homework last minute, I don't know what is. But that sounds really exciting, and I'm game to see how they handle basically what could be what Black Panther was for black audiences, for and what Shang-Chi can be for Asian cinema. And Tony Leung will play the Mandarin as well. So
it was amazing.
Yes,
Infernal Affairs is absolutely amazing.
Oh my god, it's that. Oh my god, it's
that Tony Leung. Yes.
Wow, I love Infernal Affairs.
Yeah,
one of my favorite films ever. How are you excited to see them tackle the Mandarin?
If I'm honest with you, I'm really nervous about it. It's either going to be phenomenal or, like you say, a little bit like, I don't know. I don't know about this one. But they do seem to have really gone into just kind of like tugging at your collar, like, please guys, please don't ruin this, because it could be, if it's done well, this might be the best one of all of them. But if not, it might be the one that nobody wants to talk about.
It might be Iron Fist.
Who?
But I'm really, again, I'm down for, this is what I want from the MCU going forward. I want them to introduce these new characters. I want them to go all in on these different genres. I want a proper, authentic, kind of visceral martial arts movie where the violence doesn't feel disconnected from what I'm seeing on screen in a way. We have a big tendency in the MCU films to look at them as big CGI, action fests, and sometimes the action can kind of devolve into the Michael Bay-esque tedium of yesteryear. But, with Shang-Chi, they had the chance to make almost like a Raid-esque proper martial arts film that has mystical elements.
Game of Death.
So I'm really excited for that one. That one releases February 12th.
It's interesting, just to go back, Black Widow, some news came out saying that Black Widow has more fights than any other film. I would say Shang-Chi is probably upping that again, which is great.
I'm from the footage descriptions of Black Widow, I've kind of gotten Atomic Blonde vibes with the way they've been going for that, and that might
okay with that?
Yeah, which
you would
again,
think so.
Yeah,
You'd think Shang-Chi, although completely different, they'll try and go John Wick in the marketing, just because it's an easy win for them. It'll be interesting to see how many people go into the cinema thinking, "Oh yeah, that Trevor Slattery bloke's in this one." Good.
Yeah, that's again they've crossed their wires with the Mandarin obviously now, but the Ten Rings, do we think that's a reference to the terrorist organization from Iron Man, or do we think this is a reference to the actual rings of power that the Mandarin uses?
I think it's both of those things, but not quite. So the Ten Rings exist outside of the one in the Iron Man storyline because they're in Ant-Man. So Hank Pym fights them in the 70s or the 80s or whenever it is. So they are a legitimate organization, and I think that they exist as sort of his army. Let's call them. I don't want to call them the Foot because that's an awful reference as well. To a painful
the
thing.
hand.
The hand. Even again. So yeah, I think the film is going to be about the mystical Ten Rings. There are going to be artifacts. Artifacts exist in this MCU, and it can be supernatural, and everything's leaning more towards supernatural things this time. But it'll be both.
Cool.
It's not the Iron Man one because that was fake.
Yes. Fake news. Moving on to the next TV shows, and we're getting 2 in spring of 2021.
Which is a strange decision.
Yes, we got both WandaVision and Loki. And everyone had a little bit of a nice little laugh at the expense of the Loki logo. Which I think
it's so bad.
Have you seen it?
It's not the worst.
But
it's the worst out of the
could
ones
be
released.
better.
Although Hawkeye's a little bit.
Don't you be slandering? No. That's the official Hawkeye comic lettering, my friend. I'll get back to that later on. But WandaVision, the coolest thing about that, apart from the Chuckle Brothers-esque title, was Monica Rambeau. And her getting to feature in that way, which again it raises questions, because if that is Monica and she has powers, and this is set before the events of Infinity War, why wasn't she involved? This is, again, it's one of those ones where they haven't revealed all that much about it.
I actually think there's a mistake in the release schedule. Well, it's not a mistake, it's a conscious misdirection. So I think this comes after Thor. No, I don't.
No, you don't. That's way too late.
Doctor Strange.
Yes.
Because Doctor Strange's film, which we'll talk about, opens the multiverse. The only reason for that to be linked to Wanda is so that she can get to Vision.
Yes.
The only way Vision exists is in a different dimension. And also that ties into Thor, it ties into Blade, it ties into all of the films that come afterwards. So I think it has to come afterwards.
That makes sense, because then you could have
Because then you can have Monica from a different universe.
I was totally going to say, you could totally, with the WandaVision stuff, I think people have been hinting that maybe it'll take inspiration from Tom King's comic, where it was very introspective, as Tom King comics tend to be, and it was very horror laden in certain aspects as well, about the Vision trying to acclimatize to life in suburbia. So maybe one of the horrific multiverses we see in Doctor Strange is the one we settle on is Wanda going to live that suburban life with the Vision, and it's slowly unraveling around her.
It's either that or Nightmare is involved, obviously, in Doctor Strange, and it could be that Wanda's story started with her projecting things into people's heads. Her story could end with Nightmare doing the same, putting her in the dream dimension and saying, "This is what you want, but it's awful." Yeah.
Quick thing on Loki before we segue into Doctor Strange. That's going to be focused on the Loki seed in Avengers Endgame once he gets the Tesseract, and basically him getting all up to some sorts of mischief going forward from there.
Mischief is very key. He's still a bad guy at that point, so we're going to get proper Loki.
I'm very excited about that, just solely because I want to. It's MCU going full banter there. I don't see them doing that any other way, and I wonder if we'll maybe get to see the events, we'll get to see the timeline just going to absolute hell, because Loki has his hands on this Tesseract thing, and him basically getting away with murder.
I hope so.
I do wonder whether they did it, like, whether they had this preemptively planned, or they saw so many people complaining about Endgame being like, it's a plot hole. They were like, really? Is it?
Yeah, again, more, multiverse stuff we're down with. But moving on to the next thing in the multiverse is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which is, I'm fairly certain, an act of crime against websites reporting on this film, because it's such a long title, even though,
it's great that that's the first thing we think of.
Exactly. But yeah, Scott Derrickson kind of coming back to his element. He did Sinister, which is a fantastic horror film. And Doctor Strange himself is a character very familiar with the horror. We saw the first film kind of hint at that with Dormammu, but it gets so much worse than that in the comics. We have figures like Nightmare. We have There's a comic where he literally he goes up against like a Freddy Krueger-esque figure who invades people's dreams. And basically so much of Doctor Strange was Steve Ditko going hog wild with like all this different imagery that he could get away with. And then Steve Englehart really kind of doubled down on that in the 70s. And, we've seen Derrickson posting, tweets referencing these comics in the past. And yeah, that is the kind of Doctor Strange film that I want to see in the MCU. I think it's
the kind of film that Kevin Feige wants to see in the
MCU.
From things that he said in the long distant past. Anyway.
Yeah. I was actually going to ask, because we're going to see the multiverse in this film, and obviously we saw different dimensions in the first Doctor Strange. With the emphasis on horror, could this be how we get Marvel Zombies in the MCU?
I hope so, dearly. But I don't know. Unfortunately, I think it might be a bit too much. I think we may get it in What If, which we'll talk about again. I keep jumping forwards to things. And maybe a Disney... They're calling the Disney Plus things event shows rather than TV shows, which is a very interesting marketing decision. A very clever one, in fact. If they did that, say in Phase 5 or Phase 6, then it would be great. And this would be the key. But we are getting Blade because of the multiverse. There is no... there's no other alternative.
You don't think he's going to be in the main MCU?
No, I do.
Oh, you do?
But I think he'll cross over from there or something like that. Because there has to be some catastrophic multiverse event where mutants arrive and things like that. So if you bring mutants, why not bring vampires?
So I prefer the alternative where it just turns out they weren't keeping a check on stuff, and it's like, oh, there's vampires and there's mutants.
That's kind of.
The superheroes are just really bad at.
I'm kind of really hoping for that. Like Blade's been dealing with this thing under the ground. He's like, I was trying to get your number. I was trying to call you, Cap, but like you weren't picking up, and there was this whole vampire thing.
You started talking about Thanos, and I was like, yeah, that's great. Dracula's
I
here.
had a really good catchphrase about people ice skating uphill, and you just weren't there to see it. But yeah, I'm really excited for this. We think Nightmare is probably nailed on. There were rumors a few months back from Roger Wardell, which was Doctor Strange 2 Electric Boogaloo, where he claimed that Claire and Jericho Drum, also known as Brother Voodoo, would appear in the film. Still a chance that they could appear, I think.
It's possible. There's going to be a lot of elements. They have to do Mordo because he's... Well, I mean, Spider-Man just dropped... Scorpion, so maybe they'll do the same. But I would imagine that Mordo will probably work with Nightmare. I don't think we'll see Dormammu.
No.
Because it's too soon for him to just go, remember that deal? Nah.
It makes sense to have Mordo as the recurring tether that brings all these different
Loki
metaphysical... Yeah. Cool.
And you don't cast Chiwetel
No, exactly. But yeah, moving on to the What If show, which is the summer of 2021 as well, which is an animated series, I believe. Yeah, What If is a staple of Marvel Comics, kind of like how DC has Elseworlds. Marvel have always had what if questions. It's always been really interesting ones, like what if Spider-Man was a dick, and what if the Silver Surfer wielded the Infinity Gauntlet, and all that sort of stuff as well. So they actually announced some castings for this. I don't know.
There's literally 26 actors. I'm not going to go through them all because I don't remember them, even though I wrote them all yesterday. But the standouts are, so Josh Brolin's back as Thanos. We have Jeffrey Wright, who is the only new actor so far anyway. They may add to the cast anyway, who's playing the Watcher. And the Watcher is going to be the narrator of the entire series. He's going to be like the one that's going, oh, what if? And the plot will be things that have happened in the MCU, sort of pivotal points, and what if something went slightly differently, and then following the threads from that. We have there's definitely going to be one of them set in 1945 because characters like Dum Dum Dugan and Howard Stark, but the Dominic Cooper version of Howard Stark, not the other very many ones that we have. There's going to be one set with some Ravagers because Kraglin is back, Sean Gunn, and some other ones, Yondu in particular. And there's a Thor storyline because Chris Hemsworth's in it as well. It's basically a collection of really big MCU actors who are doing voice work, and it's very exciting. And it will not be watched by as much as the rest of the things.
Yeah, well, exactly. Which is a shame because, again, it's one of those things that's like one of the coolest things I could imagine them doing with this property. Again, experimenting with different mediums as well.
If they do the animation like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, then it'll be amazing.
Yes.
I don't want it to be hand-drawn.
Is there any particular what-if moment you want to see from the MCU?
I have two. One is, what if Captain America was played by the Punisher?
Oh,
comics. I think that'd be really interesting because technically the Punisher does exist.
Yeah, the Netflix shows are coming, even though they Mahershala Ali's just come in and
Yes.
ruined that as Blade, but we're still cool because he's
It's
Mahershala Ali.
fine. And there's one where Peter Parker, so Spider-Man, and Galactus swap bodies. I think that would be the funniest thing in the
Could
entire
you
world.
imagine just Galactus with his like low his just extremely fast
Hi,
metabolism,
guys.
just like give me all the food. Got any planets? I don't know. I'm really excited about that. Moving on to the next one, we have Thor: Love and Thunder, and this is I'm very nervous and excited about the MCU with two particular properties. Thor is one, Hawkeye is the other, because they're basically adapting my two favorite Marvel comics of the last decade: the Hawkeye, Matt Fraction, David Ajar series, and then the Mighty Thor by Jason Aaron, Russell Dalton, and Matt Wilson. And yeah, I did not see this one coming. I thought they were going to do Thor 4. I thought it was going to be about Valkyrie kind of taking on the new role of Thor in a way, and it would go from there because we had the Odin son in space with the Guardians, which
Yes.
I think maybe that the fact that that's an element that's not been addressed yet. I do wonder if this will be set after the events of Guardians 3, even though Guardians 3 is going to come later. So like,
It's a confusing one.
Valkyrie will ask him, "Hey, weren't you in space?" To be like, "Oh, we don't talk about that." That was the leader.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So again, Natalie Portman is back as Jane Foster to become Thor. Valkyrie is the king of Asgard, and she's looking for a queen. So we get some actual, LGBT superhero rep in the MCU, which is amazing. But as far as the arc goes itself, there is so much to address because the idea of Jane Foster being Thor, ignoring the multiverse stuff that could come into the equation as well, is that Thor himself becomes unworthy. And, we've seen Thor or the Odinson go through so many different crises in the MCU where he could have become unworthy, but he's always managed to come through in the end.
Yeah.
So the fact that he could potentially lose Mjolnir and Jane becomes the new Thor, I'm very, very excited about because these comics are absolutely stunning, and what they do with Jane in terms of her. Basically, the reason why Thor becomes unworthy is because Nick Fury, who is now a Watcher at this point, tells him a thing called Gore is Right. Gore the God Butcher was basically this figure who decided to massacre all the Asgardian gods, and his whole statement was that the gods were basically all unworthy themselves. Yeah, so they find out that he loses the hammer. Jane Foster then receives Mjolnir. She's going through terminal a mad cancer diagnosis at this point in time, and basically every time she lifts Mjolnir, it purges the chemotherapy
Toxins, yeah.
from her system. So basically every time she wields Mjolnir, even though she's saving the entire 10 realms, she's still it's killing her effectively. And that's a really interesting quandary that they kind of address on here. And I do wonder, my big question here is this the end of Thor in the MCU, or is it the beginning? Because we could totally have it where this film retires both the Odinson as a character and Jane Foster. We could see her sacrifice herself at the end like she did in the comics. Or this could literally be the start of Natalie Portman's era as a new Thor. Both are very exciting prospects for me.
I think we're going to see the usual MCU thing of they take an idea from an arc that we want to see the entire thing of and use very little of the arc. So I think we won't get proper female Thor. I think she would be referred to as something else entirely because they can't do the full transformation where she turns into female Thor because it makes no sense. It has no grounding in the MCU. It does in the comics, but it doesn't in the MCU. So I think Jane will be ill. I think that'll be the big thing they take from it, and somebody, probably Thor, finds a way of saving her by using Mjolnir, which is not in this timeline anymore. That's where the multiverse comes in. Somebody has to go elsewhere to get it, or Jane is a different Jane from the one in the timeline, which is a confusing thing. And yeah, basically, I think it'll do that, and then it will be the end of Thor. I can't see him coming back for Phase 5, and the best way to do it. And the reason why it's called this, it's an awful title for me. It sounds like one of those romantic, erotic novels that.
I was going to
To be
avoid saying
fair,
it.
I'm
But
kind
it
of
just is.
I'm kind of happy with that because it reminds me of like old
it's
80s,
silly,
like it's like
yeah.
a really crappy game you had for the NES that was like this He-Man Conan ripoff, and the
the name of
font's
the
even like
fanfic.
and the font is even like that. So I'm kind of game for them homaging that in a way.
The Love and Thunder thing will not only reference Valkyrie's quest for a queen, but also their relationship, Thor and Jane, which was sort of swept under the carpet because it had to be, because Natalie Portman wasn't interested anymore, and then she was interested. And I think, honestly, the most genius part of the entire panel was the fact that for Endgame, they made it out like Natalie Portman refused to come back and
Yes.
just did this one dubbed line, and that was all she was going to do. And then all of a sudden she comes back. I think that's absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I think the end of it is going to be some grand gesture where Thor's like, I never got over it. Let's be together. I'm going to give up being the Odinson for you, like Aragorn and
That last from Lord
Liv
of the
Tyler.
Rings.
Forgot the name.
In terms of villains, in this arc, Malekith is the big overarching villain, but obviously
Let's hope not.
he got crushed by a big old spaceship in the Dark World. So I'm curious to see if this is how they introduce the Mangog, because we had kind of Hela almost fulfill that role in Ragnarok in the sense that she came back to, remind Asgard of its past sins, and the Mangog is basically those sins personified in a horrendous, unrelenting force. We've also got the likes of Gore, and in fact, maybe Gore makes more sense because that way you can tie in the unworthy angle. There's the question of whether or not it's going to take much from the comic, but if they were to go down the unworthy route, you could still have the Odinson with his powers, with the Jarnbjorn, his axe that he has, or whatever. And you could have Gore come in and basically try and lay waste to the Asgardians at their lowest point, in the sense that they're no longer in this all-powerful protected city in the sky where they've got their own god presiding over the Rainbow Bridge. They are just on a little settlement in somewhere in Europe. So
it does make sense that Asgard would be a target of something. Like, it would be lovely if it was Siege, but we can't do that because Norman Osborn will appear in Phase 5 now, if he's going to it all. It's a little bit of a shame because it suggests that Valkyrie is not up to protecting Asgard, but you can write that in a way that isn't like because she's a woman, which is what naturally the bros will think. Yeah, I think that's probably a key element to it. I couldn't tell you who the villain was going to be at this point, but I think you make a good point on those two. It would be interesting if they just did it as in the comics where Thor is trying to find out who female Thor is, and they have a bit of conflict. That would be interesting if it was she was the villain.
I want the mystery angle. I don't know if you feel like, because they've obviously kind of spoiled it now, where it's just like Natalie Portman's back as Jane Foster, whereas in the comics it was a bit of a mystery beforehand.
She was in the bed and she was like, do I look like I can be Thor?
Yeah.
I think it would almost be funnier if it was sort of like she just randomly sees him as he's exploring through space and she's like, oh, hey, man. He's like, ha! Are you me? What is? I think as far as the villain thing, though, it's got to be Gore. If they finish Thor off without having any of those fights,
yes,
it's a waste.
And yeah, it's kind of a testament to the legacy. Well, not even the legacy. It's not even over yet, but like the impact that Aaron's run on the characters has. And these are all very recent arcs. Like we'll go on to Hawkeye in a second as well. But these are new. These are all new things the MCU is lifting. And so we'll move on to Hawkeye actually, because it's actually based on Matt Fraction and David Ajar's Eisner Award.
Very excited.
It's honestly, I know people are like, oh, it's Jeremy Renner. I don't care. We're getting Kate Bishop in a TV show, and it's lifting. I saw the intro credits that Jeremy Renner put on his Instagram. It lifted straight from the comic, and this means we also could have Pizza Dog on the thing. But basically, I'm hopeful that this is the series that proves to everyone at long last that Marvel made a big mistake in,
I can't wait for him to die in the first episode.
I don't know, but like relegating Hawkeye to such a minor character, and then hopefully this is what because they're actually going to make him deaf as well.
Oh, I was going to ask you, is this because I know it's the series, but I thought they might sort of just hand wave it.
So they confirmed that, so they're actually going to make him deaf this time as well, which is kind of a nice little bit of karmic justice. The time Jeremy Renner took the piss out of the one fan who asked if Hawkeye could be deaf. So yeah, I'm really excited about that.
He's playing a long play as well because he's released some pretty awful music on his YouTube channel. So to go deaf is quite cool.
The ultimate strategy. It would be. I think it'd be super interesting if they had ASL in it. One thing I've always noticed, because you go learn British Sign Language. That's my only brag I get. But a lot of films have sort of a issue with accessibility, and it'd be so cool if just for once they were like, hey, like you can actually see him say words instead of having to be like, I'll find the subtitles.
Because that was the worst thing about Daredevil, was the fact that they didn't have audio description for blind viewers. It's like, wow, you've really missed the mark there. But yeah, I'm really excited for that. I want to know who's going to be playing Kate Bishop. It comes out at the end of 2021, so it's a while away. But again, it's the kind of project I want to see Marvel make, and it's the one that I've been begging them to do for a long time. Moving on, because we've basically going over, but you know what? Screw it. This is how it goes now. Blade.
And one more thing
is basically coming in MCU Phase 5, we think. Because Phase 4 is a very short phase, it
just
looks
2
like.
years, yeah. I've just written about this. In fact, it's the reason why they've done it is because they need Disney Plus subscribers, and to bottleneck all of this and to have the 5 TV shows equally on equal footing with the movies is how you get people to subscribe. Basically, you don't have everything aiming towards an Avengers movie. You have everything aiming towards people signing up for Disney Plus.
Yes,
I mean, it's cynical, but that's the way they do it.
It is, and I'm kind of annoyed that streaming services are becoming the new terrestrial TV channels, and maybe one day someone will come with a package that has all of them on one, and we'll be back to square one all over again. But yeah, Mahershala Ali is playing the character. He literally phoned up Marvel after winning his Oscar for Green Book and being like,
"Make me Blade.
What's good?" Which again, it's mad to me that Marvel weren't making those moves themselves.
It's hilarious. The long-running story of this is an imaginary story where Wesley Snipes was having interviews and meetings with Marvel. He kept bringing it up on Twitter, and I don't know whether any of that happened. If they did, it was probably just Wesley, we're not really going to make this with you, but we're going to make Blade. That the best thing that's come out of Comic-Con is the re-emergence of that sequence from Blade where he refused to open his eyes, so the CGI'd his eyes on.
Yeah.
And he wanted to continue being Blade.
That's how I want to live, to be fair.
Yeah. Obviously, this throws a little bit of the timeline stuff into a little bit of a tiny conundrum if you do care about the Netflix stuff, because he obviously played Cottonmouth, but who cares? He's Mahershala Ali playing Blade, the Daywalker. It's literally the stuff dreams are made of. Yes. And there was talk that it could potentially be R-rated as well. Would you like to see that, Zoe?
Well, the one thing that broke my heart about Venom, and probably broke most people's heart about Venom, is that...
The one thing?
I'm sorry about Venom.
Hey, guys. Is that, like, it was advertised for so long as, like, an R-rated horror film. It was like, this is going to be amazing. And then you show up and Venom, sort of.
Yeah.
And you're like, you promised me so many things.
They were hyping it up as, like, a Cronenberg-esque
really
body
liked it.
armor. I know, yeah, but...
I think Blade could be that for realsies this
I
time.
hope so.
Imagine if it was like an Evil Dead-esque. Just, I want that all. I want that right now. And then obviously afterwards as well, Kevin Feige teased Black Panther 2, Captain Marvel 2, and the Fantastic Four and the X-Men, which, they've also confirmed that they've basically got Phase 5 laid out now as well, which again confirms that we could be seeing the Fantastic Four and the X-Men as early as 2022, 2023. So... I
don't think they'll do both. I think Fantastic Four first. I think X-Men will come probably Phase 6 after 2024 maybe. That seems like a long way away, but when you look at the way the content is mapped out, there's a lot of stuff in there, and to bring in both the Fantastic Four and the X-Men would be a difficult thing.
It's weird that we've reached a point where it was like, and the Fantastic Four and the X-Men. I was like, there's other stuff I'm more excited for. And it's like, a couple of years ago, I would have lost my mind.
Yeah. It's one of those things where they're juggling so much. I mean, we've got D23 still to come, haven't we? That's next month, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll see. It's August, I believe.
August, yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think we'll see some of the same stuff. I would imagine the Black Widow footage will appear, and then we'll see it, like, leaked, probably. But they'll definitely unveil some new things for D23 because they're very, very keen for people to be involved in D23 as Disney fans, so they'll reward them with something.
Yeah.
Last time it was on, I believe it was before Comic-Con, and D23 spoiled what everyone was going to see at Comic-Con. It was a bit of a nightmare. It was good for me because I could write about it earlier.
But yeah, those were basically every little nook and cranny secret that doesn't even make sense. They were basically all the secrets we get from the little nooks and crannies that we found at Marvel's Hall H panel this weekend. Please let us know what MCU project you're most excited for in the next few years. Are you a Hawkeye fan? If so, please contact me on Twitter at YouandRunesThings.
Just for a chat.
Exactly, just for a chat. Let me talk about Hawkeye and Pizza Dog and all the nice things that Clint Barton gets up to in his spare time. But anyway, I've been joined by Simon Gallagher.
Goodbye.
And you can follow me on Twitter at
Cy Gallagher.
There we go. And Zoe Muskelly.
Still Zoe.
And you can follow her on Twitter at
Zemaskel. Still more decipherable.
I've got to do everything, haven't I? Anyway, that was the What Culture little look at MCU Phase 4 and beyond. Please go check us out at whatculture.com and go like, share, and subscribe and do all that stuff as usual. And I'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.